January 2nd, 2015 was my 14th birthday. And for my 14th birthday, I received a letter. This wasn't a normal letter. This was something from someone who wasn't even a family member. This letter was from my 8th grade Bible teacher, Mr. Stroup. Mr. Stroup was known in our high school for sending letters to all of his students on their birthday. And this was something incredibly special to me. I didn't get letters from other people normally that weren't direct family. And this letter, outside of it being an obvious happy birthday, was more personalized and meant a lot to me. And this letter right here is my 8th letter that I received from him. January 2nd, 2023, I turned 22. Over the span of 8 years, going from 8th grade through high school, and now my graduating year of college, I have received 8 letters from him. Every single time being personalized, talking about his life, talking about my life, and giving a deeper meaning into these letters, and it feels like a conversation. Many questions have arisen, like how many letters does he have to write in a day? Because he has to at least be writing
5 to 10.
I don't know, probably like 24 letters a week or something, maybe more.
Probably writes like 50 a day.
6 to 10 letters a day?
He's got to be writing 10 letters a day. Some days probably 15, maybe some days like 7.
I want to say like 15 a day? I don't know.
Probably just a few letters here and there throughout his day.
7 letters per day.
I would think he's probably got to write at least, 8 to 9 letters a day.
Whenever he sits down to write these letters, his daily writing
Process is he probably has like a list somewhere, maybe Excel, maybe not, because it dates so far back.
I've tried to contemplate that.
Opens up a binder that has thousands of students' birthdays in it, and just sits for like an hour or two, just writing.
Like all of the students that he has and like all of the dates, and I'm sure he spends like hours a day writing these letters.
Dan, how many letters are you writing a day? Like, how busy are you? This has got to be a lot of time.
Among all of his thousands and thousands of students that he writes letters to every year, we have many personal questions that we want to ask him, like,
Does your hand ever cramp?
Have you ever thought about just calling it a day? Starting January 1st, you know what, I'm done.
I just ask him like kind of where the idea came from, and if he finds it maybe stressful at all, trying to keep up with the demand in writing and like trying to keep up with that contact.
I guess my question for Mr. Stroup would be like, how does he remember all of the personal things from everybody? I feel like after several students, it would get a little, things would wash together.
What made him start the letters?
lastly, with his letters comes deeper meaning, and every single letter that he sends means something different to all of us. To me, it means something different, but to other people, they mean
A little personal touch from that time. It's nice to see that a teacher like cared enough to actually A, know my birthday, and B, like keep up with that and continue writing those things. And all the letters are somehow personalized. I'm sure he just writes it all down.
And the students see his handwriting, and then I say, what does this handwriting mean to you? And all the students that had him are like, Mr. Stroup, it's that handwriting. Once you see his handwriting, you know it's Mr. Stroup. And it brings back a great memory for the students.
A lot of teachers, right, they're friends of the students and they're kind of mentors, but sometimes you don't keep contact out of school and going into college and stuff like that. And so having a letter every year on my birthday, just something special to me.
The letters from Mr. Stroup show me that he's thinking of each of his students every year and how much he cares about all the students he had individually. Each letter, he recognizes things that he has heard about me from over the years, and so it just reminds me that someone's caring and praying over me.
I just say thank you. It's really cool to have someone that's intentional. In college, I don't have any professors that would go out of their way to take the time to get to know me as well as he did, and then to remember and keep in touch.
My son Andrew's known him all his life, and yeah, when he gets his letter, I see him sit down, he sees this handwriting, same thing. Oh, I got my birthday card from Mr. Stroup, and it's always on time, you know. And he sits down there and he reads it, and it's just like, he just knows someone still cares, you know. He's been out of 8th grade, 9 years now? Hasn't been in his class.
Those letters mean a lot. It's kind of interesting. Sometimes I forget, and then I get a letter from somebody and it's not a relative, and then it just makes my whole day. And then other years I am excited to read them, and they're just always super encouraging and uplifting.
Because of how many students that he has to write letters to every single year, they all have questions that they want to ask him, and the easiest way to get answers is to ask him.
My name is Daniel Stroup. Once you become a senior, you don't go by years anymore, but by levels, because it sounds like you're increasing in a video game, so I'm at level 67 right now. I taught for 41 years. One thing that I felt was really important to develop a relationship with the students. I always had heard about students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I felt if I was going to teach Bible that I really wanted to make sure I developed relationships with them. I got to know who they were. I got to know things they were involved in life, whether it's going to ball games or plays or whatever they're involved in. I tried to be as present as possible and establish that relationship so that they would know that I cared and that they would care about what I was going to teach. I commenced the project on October 1st, 1984, and it was written to Connie. I have to average at least 6 a day. Some days are more than that, but that would be the average that I need to keep up, and so you multiply that times 365, and I'm doing somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 letters a year. So I send letters to Australia, England, Netherlands, Japan, several countries in Africa. If I would sit down from beginning to the end, as far as writing the letter, addressing the envelope, it probably takes about 10 minutes. But I try to do work ahead of time, whether it's addressing envelopes or just kind of starting the letter and then finishing it right before the birthday. So I probably don't spend 10 minutes on a letter, but if I was just writing one from start to finish, it would be about 10 minutes. Well, when I first started doing it, I thought, well, I'll just do it for when they're in middle school. But then they went on to high school. I would still see them around ball games and hallways and things like that. And I thought, I don't want them to think that I was just writing to them in middle school just to be nice to them. But I want them to know that I still remember them now. And so I thought, well, I'll write through high school. But then I just would still hear from college and Christmas time, or they would send birth announcements or wedding announcements and things like that. And so I thought, I'll just keep writing, and I'm glad I have. The first couple months that I did this, I was keeping track of how much money I spent on paper, on postage stamps, and it was like the Lord said, are you doing this just for your attention or whatever? You don't need to keep track of this. And so I stopped doing that. I stopped keeping track of it because I thought, if this is going to be a ministry that I do, if this is something, I don't want to be able to stop and say, well, look how much money I spent on this. So I stopped keeping track after the first 3 months. There were times when I would have to go to the post office and in the ashtray pick out change and buy 2 or 3 stamps at a time. But then after a while, people started sending them to me, and I think I went for about, maybe 20, 25 years without ever buying a postage stamp. They were sent to me in the mail. Sometimes I'd find them in my box at school. Sometimes they'd be handed to me. So I probably haven't spent that much money over the years. I thought all the way back to when I was in first grade, I still remember the day in the classroom when the teacher gave us a little project. We'd learn letters and how to spell and words and things like that. And she taught us how to write a letter. And she said, you put the date up here, right here you put dear, and then you put the person you're writing to, and then you put a comma after that. Then you indent the first paragraph and you start writing about, I'm sitting in the classroom, or whatever we wrote about in the letter, and then down at the bottom, sincerely, and you write your name. I don't know if that was in the curriculum. I don't know if that's just something she did for first graders, but I just remember thinking, wow, that is really cool that you could write something down, put it in the mail, and have it sent to whoever you wanted to send it to. Then in my 4th grade year, the teacher we had come from Kansas, and when she left her previous teaching position, she got everybody's names and addresses that were interested in being a pen pal. And then she came to our school, and one of the first weeks she talked about how many of you would like to have a pen pal. You could write a letter to this person here. I can match you up with someone that I taught previously. And I thought, well, that would be a lot of fun. And I ended up writing to a boy named Danny. I chose his out of the list because he had the same name as I did. And so I wrote him a letter somewhere around Wichita, Kansas. And he wrote back. And we ended up, from 4th grade, we ended up writing back and forth all the way through our high school years. And it was just so much fun to get mail, to write, to hear something from someone I didn't really know. Then when I got to middle school, with this background in my mind, I had been a coach in 6th grade, coached basketball, and after 4 years of doing that, my family was starting to grow, and I felt it was important for me to be home as much as possible. So I stopped coaching, and I was thinking, what would be a good way to have some touch with the students outside the classroom? And I thought, well, everybody has a birthday, everybody enjoys getting mail, maybe I'll just write them a little note on their birthday. And so my 2nd year of teaching in the middle school, I started doing that. And I thought, well, this is a nice way to have a touch with the students without making a big deal about, myself or them. And then it just kept going from there. When I first started writing letters to my students, I wanted to make sure that I started with some greeting and let them know that I knew it was their birthday, so I wanted to make some mention of that. Then I wanted to make the letters personal so that they knew that I was really thinking about them. I don't want to do too much general information. So I try to remember something from them in the classroom or something where maybe I've seen them recently. So I'll try to include something personal. And then when I started, I also thought I'd like to just have some verse, something kind of spiritual here. And I had gotten cards or letters from people where they just put a reference down, and sometimes I would look it up, sometimes I wouldn't. So I thought, well, I want to write out the verse. So I wanted to find something short that I could write out. And what I do is I'm reading through the Bible through the course of the year. I might find a verse, or there might be something that was significant for me, and I think, okay, I want to remember that. And so I'll use that. And then I usually use a verse for a few months, and then there'll be some other verse I'll add in. So I don't write a verse specifically for a student for what I think they might need that day, because I don't really know. But often people will write back and say, thank you for that verse, or how did you know that I needed that verse on that day? It's just an example to me in the book of Hebrews, where it says that God's word is living, it's active, and it can be used whether I write it out or whether we read it. God's word is very powerful. I do keep a journal. I remember the story of the children of Israel when they were leaving Egypt. They crossed the Red Sea, they're on their way to the Promised Land, and one of the first battles that they faced, Joshua was able to get a victory for them, and at the end of that battle, the Lord told Moses, write it down as something to be remembered, because we can so easily forget things. And so I've kept a journal a personal journal from probably since 1982, I think. And I'll often write down things maybe that happen in the classroom, or I'll just keep notes because when you come to parent-teacher meeting, you'd like to have some information that you can give the parents. So I keep notes for that. I would keep notes when I see people at church or at a store or at some ball game. If I see someone, I want to remember that so that I can tell them about it the next year. Some things are so big that you never forget them, but there are a lot of things that can just slip from your mind, and so I try to write things down. If I meet someone and they introduce me to their husband, they just got married, or their kids, I try to remember their names. If I get Christmas letters or cards from people, they often will talk about their year, and so I try to keep those and any kind of information that I hear from other people. I know that there's an impact, a ripple effect, but I probably don't know how big that might be, but it is encouraging to hear things like that and to know that other people have been touched by it as well. And there were times that I would think, does it really matter? Does anybody really care? And about that time, I would get a letter from someone who just thanked me for writing and how it came at the right time, how they appreciated me keeping in touch, or saying something like, yours was the only letter I received on my birthday, only card I received on my birthday. And so those stories kind of keep me going and help me understand that, yeah, maybe this does have a good impact. I care, I remember them. I just want them to know that those times in middle school were not just a little blip in time, but it's just part of a relationship and a life that we've had together. I was talking to a friend about it, and a friend said, well, if I've been getting a letter from you for the last 10 years and all of a sudden you stop, I'll wonder what's going on. And I thought, well, maybe I should just write a final letter. So I retired, and I thought, okay, I guess maybe I should just bring this to an end. And so for the first few weeks of the summer, I started writing like a final letter to some of the students. And it was very difficult. It was kind of like being in high school and breaking up with your girlfriend, but doing it 6 times every day. And I thought, well, this isn't any fun. I'm not enjoying this. And then I started thinking, well, I'm retired. I've got extra time. Why would I stop now? And so I actually started hearing back from some of the ones that I'd written a final letter to. And so I thought, well, maybe I should keep this going. Maybe there's still something here that I need to be doing. And so I haven't stopped yet. There are some students that I haven't heard from for maybe 15 years. I don't even know if I have the right address. So occasionally I'll write them a final letter. But as far as a broad scale of things, I'm still going. I really enjoy it. I enjoy having contact with my former students. I enjoy hearing back from them when someone will write. It just gives me joy. I feel like God, from first grade to 4th grade, all the way through, was kind of preparing me for this, even though I didn't know it. And once you get the snowball going down the hill, it's hard to stop it. And so it's just fun when you hear from other people, encouragement from other people, just to keep going.
The show his letters mean a lot, and that they're personalized and more than a simple happy birthday. I have not opened my letter. The last time I saw Mr. Stroup was over the summer at my sister's graduation open house. There I talked to him about graduation, I talked to him about senior year, and I talked to him about all the letters that he sent me, and I showed him a stack of letters that I still keep on me. And that was the extent of our conversation. And to open this letter and to probably see every single part that I talked to him about means a lot. And I'm surprised that he remembers all this stuff from many different people and many different walks of life. So, to read my letter, Dear Andrew, happy birthday. It is a new year, a new opportunity to add to our annual conversation. It is also nice to supplement our annual conversation with seeing you last summer at Lauren's open house. I was glad we had the opportunity to talk for a bit, and I was surprised when you showed me your birthday letters from last year. I hope you are doing well, and we have much to look forward to in this year. It has always been good to look back at the past. It is also good to be thankful. It has been almost a year now that I was married. I am glad that you had the opportunity to meet Susie when we were at your house, and I have tried to follow Deuteronomy 24:5 this year. I am not perfect, but I do feel there was a good foundation set in place for us. I have retired for a couple of years, but Susie and I are working full-time again as grandparents. We share 22 grandkids, so there's frequent birthdays, ball games, programs, and various events to attend. All the ways we want to spend our time and be involved with family, we are thankful for the way our two families have blended. Also, another change in several years of living downtown, I moved back to the northeastern corner of Indianapolis, not too far from Heritage. Are you in your last semester at IUPUI? It would be interesting to hear about the options you are considering for fall. I hope you have a nice birthday, and I trust that this year will be a year of growth in all the areas of your life. May the Lord watch over you and protect you throughout this year. It is nice to keep in touch. Happy birthday, Mr. Stroup. At the bottom, he attaches a Bible verse for us. Psalm 115:12. The Lord will remember us and bless us. He also goes over his week that he's writing this. This week he's reading My Leah, A Brief History. He's always been faithful is what he's listening to, and he's pondering Romans 12. At the very top, he writes the time and day that he writes this letter to me. He wrote this December 29, 2022 at 7:44 p.m. Him managing to remember stuff from a simple conversation I had means a lot, and with the time and date, it shows that he did not sit down and write this letter immediately after talking to me. He waited months and months to be able to sit down and write this letter just for my birthday. Endings are like breaking up with a girlfriend. They're never fun to do, and we hate doing them. And for Mr. Stroup, I wish to continue our annual conversation in the future.